I just want to remind everyone, if you are planning on speaking at tonight's meeting, you need to go to the back of the room and get a yellow registration form prior to speaking. They are where the agendas are hanging on the rack. So again, if you plan on speaking, you need to turn in a yellow registration form to me. Thank you. I'm happy to get you one.
I think we should propose a rule that if you've spoken in the last 6 days, you don't get another.
Anyone have anybody at all the meetings? All right. You ready? Donna?
I want to give, I think that Brenton is give me a thumbs up.
Yep, it says on here.
Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the village board on Monday, November 20th at 7 PM at the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Next item is President's Report. Because of the lengthy agenda, I'll have no President's Report tonight, so we'll go to announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports, starting with committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room at 5:30 on Wednesday, December 6th.
Thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on Monday, December 18th at 6 PM.
Thank you. Trustee Hudson.
Public Safety, December 4th, also at 6 PM.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports they'd like to bring forward? Trustee Jan Miller.
Good evening. I have an announcement. In regard to the library, if you're not familiar, Christmas is coming up and we have our Germantown Community Library holiday sale. And it's a fundraiser for the library each year, and all of the funds raised go back to the library to support library programs and collections. This year, we would especially can use your support as they cut the 2024 library budget by $100,000. So what we do is the Friends come along and they put together they've put together over 200 baskets for sales, and they range from $5 to $50. So if you have an opportunity, you want to do some Christmas shopping, please stop by the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports they'd like to bring forward? If there is nothing else, then we can go to the next item, which is citizen input. If there's anyone in our audience or joining us via WebEx that'd like to join in on citizen input, you're welcome to do so at this time. You can come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record, and also turn in a yellow slip to our village clerk. If you're here to speak about and make comments to the budget itself, which is the new business item G, I'd wish for you to make and wait until that item is up on the agenda. But if there is anything else that anybody would like to bring forward in regards to citizen input, Please come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. Is there anyone wishing to come forward? Yeah, turn the mic. Second favorite.
Second favor. It's Lynn Shower Bednarz, and I live on Pawnee Court in Germantown. A couple of things. I'm very new at listening to city meetings. I never felt I had to until I had an issue with my home, and it was not taken care of the way I felt a taxpayer should have been taken care of. I got absolutely no response from anybody on this board to my home. I've made at least 7 phone calls, and I think it's absolutely unbelievable. And then with the, pardon? And then with the budget, all I've heard since I've been coming here is spend, spend, spend. I ran a company under the owner, and I was given that position because I was very conservative in my thinking and I watched every penny. There are things that I would like to see our budget that we're working on. I don't want my taxes to be going up unrealistically for things that really need to be looked at, and things should be not paid for if they're not necessary. And I'm wondering what kind of common sense people and logic anybody uses when they form a village budget with our money. It's your money also, not just mine. And there's a point now where people are getting really ticked off at what's happening here, the spending and everything else. And I really think time should be spent on looking at a budget. Do we need this? Do we need that? Do we need all this building? What do we need a building for when we have a pretty viable building that I see that's being used? And I don't think that's being done on this budget, because that's all I've heard since I've been coming here is spend, spend, spend. And everybody says it's great. Nobody wants to argue it. Nobody wants to dissent this stuff. And I think somebody needs to start standing up for what's going on. And so I'd like to comment on that and ask all of you, the responsibility you've committed to on a budget is look for what can be cut, look what's necessary, what's not necessary. And we don't need to do it. We really don't need to do it. And with my little issue now that I've had with my neighbor, one good thing, they did clean their leaves up early. And one bad thing is the guy they hired dug holes in my yard when he went over the borderline. Now I got to pay to have somebody fill in the holes his big vehicle dug in my land, and it's like 5 feet long. So it's not like a little hole. But anyway, I'm dealing with that because nobody here has offered or let me know they did. I have heard from nobody. So I'd like you to be more concerned about our budget and speak up against the spending we're doing so that we can afford to live here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. If there's anyone else that would like to come forward to speak on anything else but the budget at this time, because we're going to do that under item G under the public comments section. But if there's anyone else wishing to come up, you're welcome to do so.
Good evening.
evening.
My name is Joletta Kirpin. I'm the executive director of the Germantown Chamber. I live at 1027 Winnebago Circle in Richfield. I just wanted to come today. The Germantown community celebrated our Christmas festival on November 11th on Veterans Day. This day consisted of 5K Candy Cane Run Walk, the Jingle Bell Dash, the parade, and the Christmas festival. These events give our chamber members, non-members, organizations, and even elected officials a chance to show themselves in front of our community. This event directly correlates with our mission, which is to advance the success and well-being of our members and also the community. So these events cannot happen without a significant support from the village, including the village board, village staff, Public Safety Commission, the Park and Rec Department, the DPW, the police department, and the fire department in preparation and execution and/or participation in the event. So representing the chamber community, I just wanted to say thank you for this, for the village and all the departments involved in supporting these events. Lastly, I want to invite you all to our next event, which is the Tannenbaum Trail. It's currently going on in Fireman's Park right now. It consists of 50 trees that are decorated by organizations, businesses, and community members that is available to look at during the day, at night, all through the Christmas season. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Gilletta. And you short yourself because there is plenty of planning, there's plenty of time, and there's also a lot of meetings that happen on your side of the fence to plan something like that and to make it a successful event as it is year after year. When I was there for the tree lighting, it was very well participated, a lot of kids, a lot of families, a lot of activities. So I would like to congratulate you again for another successful event. I know it helps to kick off the holiday season and get everybody kind of in the season and in the feeling for the season. And it's one of my favorite events just for that reason. So thank you for that and all your help and all your crew's help in making that happen.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input outside of the budget?
Yes, Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Last year, the village engaged Mueller Communications in regards to the referendum that was held. And I say it's time to give someone else a chance. At best, what one can say is that they were overeager, and at worst, in my opinion, their actions, along with the actions of the administrator, tainted the referendum. So what happened? The short version is that Administrator Krecklow directed Cass from Mueller to issue press releases and arrange for President Dean Walter, to be interviewed by newspapers. And these articles were published prior to the special communications people meeting to discuss how everything was going to be released. At the village board on the Monday before the communications meeting occurred, you finalized the language for the referendum. Prior to that, the press release went out because the date of the printed articles correspond with the press release going out prior to the village board approving the language, and it's written here, here, and here. There's evidence. So it was unprofessional for Mueller not to push back and say to their client, we can't do that because it's not approved. And oh, by the way, the village board said, don't release this information because you all did. You said that to them, but it happened anyway. I think it's time someone else got a chance. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? I have received one comment via email, and it reads as such. Hi, my name is Millard Montgomery Jr. I have been a Germantown resident for over 20 years and have worked for Green Bay Packaging going on 10 years. I'd like the board to vote yes for several reasons. Green Bay Packaging is a great company to work for and have helped me provide for my family in the Germantown School District. Germantown school districts have helped my family prepare for college and become wonderful citizens in the world. Two of my daughters have graduated from college, one with a Bachelor of Arts and the other with a Bachelor of Science. The youngest daughter is working on a PhD. If it wasn't for Green Bay Packaging supporting me, none of this would have aspired to these great accomplishments. Thank you, Millard Montgomery, who is the business processing manager at Green Bay Packaging. That's all I have for comments in regards to citizen input. I do have two that I received for the budget, but we'll read those when that item comes up on the new business agenda. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance? All right, thank you. Then we can go to the next item, which is consent agenda. Board?
of consent agenda, item A.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve consent agenda item A. Is there any discussion on the motion? There's no discussion. There's no money. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business, starting with item A, public safety staffing referendum question. Give us more information on this. We'll turn the meeting over to our village administrator, Steve Krecklow.
This is an item that was before the village board at your last meeting. The direction from the village board was to look at some potential changes to the language for a referendum question and bring it back before you at this meeting. What I would recommend at this point, we under new business have two proposals for a communications consultant for a public safety referendum. My recommendation would be to postpone this item until we have a communications consultant on board and able to provide some feedback and recommendations to the wording of the questions, the background information in the resolution as well. We do have another month or so before the question has to be finalized and submitted to the county and the state. So my recommendation to the board is to hold this to a future meeting.
I'll make a motion to postpone unfinished business item A till first meeting of December, second meeting of December. Do we need a date?
I would recommend the second meeting of December to give some time.
Postpone until second meeting of December.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. There is one public hearing on tonight's agenda is for the 2024 Village of Germantown budget and 2023 tax levy. To give us some more information and background on this public hearing item, we'll turn the meeting over to our budget director, Matthew Uselding. Is he here? Just
I
coming.
believe he's on his way. He was monitoring the meeting from his office.
The top part. Okay. When we're ready for public hearing then. Matthew? Your report.
So before you is a short presentation regarding the 2024 recommended budget. Going back a little bit, the 2024 budget really started back in June when we did some salary and benefit projections. At that time, we kind of looked back at what it was like for 2023. I made some projections on where we would be going from there. From July through September, departments reviewed their budgets, kind of crafted their proposed budgets for administration, and we worked head in head with department heads to kind of craft the proposed budget for the village board. Then in September, we presented a proposed budget for the village board. In October, the village board reviewed all departmental budgets with their committee of the whole meetings and moved the budget to publication, which brings us here today for budget adoption. Like many other municipalities, there are several budget challenges that the village faced. These challenges are not unique to Germantown. They're happening all across the state, but wanted to highlight some of those today. One, we've seen increased calls for public safety services, whether it be for police officers or firefighters and EMTs. Those calls have been going up. In addition, we are facing inflationary and market factors, including the state salt contract, solid waste and recycling, gas and oil, among a few other things. In addition, the 2024 budget addresses some salary and benefit concerns, including funding 2023 increases for public safety personnel, as well as 4% for union contracts, or for DPW union contracts. That went a little fast. While the village did have some budget challenges for 2024, there are also some opportunities. The village has continued to see strong growth in assessed value year over year. In addition, the village also received roughly 3% in net new construction, which is significantly higher than the last couple of years. Furthermore, the village continues to maintain a healthy unassigned fund balance. Several budget themes developed throughout the 2024 budget process, one being controlling the tax burden, addressing public safety needs, as well as focusing on employee compensation. The overall tax levy increases by just under 2%, with the majority of that being in the general fund. This year, unlike previous years, the village has decided to take the full amount of net new construction, placing the TID portion to address public safety concerns, hiring additional police and fire personnel. In addition, we see a slight decrease in the debt service levy of about $22,000 for an overall levy increase of 1.9%. What does that mean for the mill rate? The mill rate increases by about 5 cents per $1,000 of home value. As previously stated, the village board decided to address some public safety needs by using the full amount of levy, allocating some state aid to additional personnel, as well as reallocating some funds originally allocated for street trees over for additional public safety personnel. They also decided, or the village board has also decided to allocate ARPA funds and general fund reserves to fund 2 firefighters/EMTs. The 2024 recommended budget assumes a 3% performance adjustment, funds 23 increased public safety salaries, as well as addressed some public works management salaries and includes a 3% assumption in insurance premiums. Budget drivers. On the revenue side, the majority of the general fund revenue and revenue for the village comes through property taxes. The property tax levy for the 2024 budget is roughly $11 million. In addition, some other large categories are state aids, including state transportation aids and state shared revenues. In the 2024 recommended budget, we are projecting an increase in ambulance fee revenues based on the number of calls and a better premium adjustment from our vendor. On the expense side, for expenses, the 2024 budget assumes a transfer of dispatch services from the village of Germantown to Washington County. It adjusts for inflationary and market factors, as well as the compensation that has been previously mentioned. In addition, the 2024 budget includes 4 additional police officers and 2 firefighter EMTs. And this gives you a breakdown based on different expense categories. You'll notice that salaries and benefits make up a large portion of the village expenses. Overall, the tax levy increases by $296,000 or 1.9%. So what does that look like for the average resident? The average assessed value for a home in the village of Germantown is $326,000. For a mill rate in 2023 of $5.52, the average homeowner would have paid $1,794 in property taxes last year. This year, the same home would pay $1,810 in village property taxes, which amounts to roughly a $16 increase under the 2024 recommended budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Then we will open this public hearing by hereby stating the Village of Germantown will have a public hearing on its 2024 proposed budget summary for the general fund as required by state statute section 65-90 subsection 3. Residents and taxpayers of the Village of Germantown, please note that a public hearing will be on the proposed 2024 budget will be held at 7 p.m. or later on November 20th at the Germantown Village Hall in front of the Germantown Village Board. This is a proposed budget. The final levy and amount may increase or decrease depending on the majority vote of the board members at the meeting. If there is anyone within our audience that is like to come forward to make a public comment for or against the budget, you're welcome to do so at this time. All I would ask is you come to the podium, bring your slip with you, and state your name and your address for the record. Is there anyone wishing to come up to make public comments about the 2024 proposed budget at this time?
All right, Eleni Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. This is an austere budget compared to last year. And I think we can expect this type of budget for several years, at least until TID 8 gets released. And the revenue can flow back into the general fund from that. Until that time, we shouldn't expect any additional debt for infrastructure or property purchases by the village. I do think that the Green Bay project seems reasonable, but I don't think that we should be spending any money on a road beside it. So I don't want that to be included in this budget or any other budget through when TID 8 is released. The main thing about this budget is that we must ensure that the police and fire levels of personnel are indeed added. We need them. And there needs to be a solution for the third shift so that the police building should not stand empty. So whatever that looks like, whatever adjustment needs to be made, whether it's now or later when we know more about the transition for whatever's happening with the dispatch, then okay, let's deal with it then. I don't think we're ready to deal with the dispatch right now. Shifting doesn't seem like the county is entirely ready for us. We don't even know if there's enough space. And one of the suggestions I have was let's have a satellite office here and have the county pay for it here until they are ready, whatever that means, whatever that looks like. I don't know if that would work, but it's something to look into. Thanks.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time to speak for or against the 2024 proposed budget?
My name is Jeff Johnson, W160N10587 Fieldstone Pass. Had a couple of comments to make about the budget. I appreciate that putting together a budget for the village is a difficult, complex project. However, I think the village missed the boat on this one in a big way. We look at the overall budget, we look at the amount of the levy that was available and what was taken, and yet we still take money from the library and recreation, which are key components of quality of life here in the village. We add significantly to the public safety end with no demonstration, in my opinion, of an obvious need. Public safety currently eats up approximately half the village budget. Do we really need to make it bigger at this point when the village hasn't increased sizably? More concerningly is the amount of money taken from the library and recreation are relatively small. We see significant increases in expense costs and other lines throughout the village budget. Some big ones in the clerk's office, data processing. Without more detail, I can't really tell what those are about. We see big increases there, and yet we have to take money out of the library and recreation department. My recommendation would be either find money that can be cut from other line items to restore funding to the library and recreation, or use a little bit of that still available levy to put that money back in the budget. I say all of this without even touching on the fact that the Public Works building currently being constructed is adding an incredible amount of cost to the budget through debt service. I can't tell what that is. I'm not that deep in the budget. But if we can spend tens of millions of dollars on a public work budget, we can spend $100,000 on the library. Thanks.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time to speak for or against the proposed 2024 village budget?
Yeah, I was just talking because I've discussed this before. We do not need a new police building for millions of dollars. Now, I don't know why you think we do. I've been in that building many times. It's empty. You go to the desk, there's nobody there, one person. You go in the back of the meeting room, that's not being used. Why do you need a new police building for millions of dollars? I really think you should look at this. This is ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with the building. It's not dilapidated. It's not deteriorating. It doesn't need to be built. And I can't believe that all of you together would plan on spending millions of dollars of our money for nothing. Nothing. Is there a reason why we need a new building? Can you give me one? Can anybody give me one? What?
We're not allowed to respond
Oh.
to public comments.
So we don't even know why you think we should build a building. And yet you're getting paid with our money to use our money to waste on a building that is not necessary. I'm sorry. I just think this is ridiculous. I think the whole way you people plan things, I'm not against you people, but this is all our money and it's a waste. You don't need a building. I've been in that building all the time and there's nobody around. So that's all I have to say. I really think you should think about this a little bit more about your spending.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time to speak for or against the 2024 proposed budget?
Richard Cook. I live on North 114W16500 Crown Court East. And I just wanted to second this gentleman's concern about budget reduction, particularly for the Park and Rec Department, in addition to the library. And I think it's very unfortunate. I think both of those, the library as well as Park and Rec, provide valuable services for the community, and to see type of reduction that I've been made aware of, I think is extremely unfortunate. And I hope somehow that you would reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time to speak for or against the proposed 2024 budget? Anyone else wishing to come forward? All right, I have received 2 comments in regards to tonight's budget. First one received reads as thus: to whom this concerns, I am reaching out to express my deep concern over the 2024 proposed budget cuts to our local library. I am extremely frustrated with this decision. I would like to know where the removed budget for the library is going. Instead, what does the board deem more valuable than curiosity, respect for knowledge, and limitless creativity? The library is a community hub where residents come together to participate in a variety of programs which provide education and recreational opportunities, as well as fostering community engagement. Unfortunately, your budget cuts will have a significant impact on these programs. The proposed cuts could jeopardize this service, further depriving our community of an indispensable resource. As our community leaders, you should strive to invest into public services. I urge you to reconsider this decision and explore other avenues for budget adjustments that do not involve reducing the library funding. I expect to hear back where these funds were allocated and why the board considers the library to hold lesser importance. With kind regards, Katie Weiss, who is located at West 217 North 11298 South Manor Court, and that is in Germantown, Wisconsin. The second comment I received says, I have a few concerns about the 2024 budget being discussed for possible adoption tonight. There are almost as many questions this year as last year, perhaps more. Also, there are some startling similarities, such as, number one, last year we did not have the 2021 audit to use to prepare the 2023 budget. There was a litany of reasons given, including COVID, our finance director retiring, etc. In my opinion, the real reason for the delay was not any of those things, rather the inexplicable loss of 59 days of financial data. Due to the village staff not taking our vendors seriously in regards to our server issues, this staff and board threw our vendor under the bus and blamed them for the problem, when we all know when a simple use of a jump drive would have averted the issue entirely. Flash drives are pretty cheap, like $30 a piece at the Office Depot. Then it took the better part of a year to recover those 59 days of data, including a retired CPA quitting halfway through the project. Perhaps he did not want his name on such a disaster. I guess we will never know. Number two, 2021 audit surplus. We were told for a year the surplus was 1.1 million. The village staff was so confident they tried 4 different times to use it for employee bonuses and other things. Thankfully, the village board did not bite on this, or we would have had even a bigger deficit to address. Now we are awaiting the 2022 audit, even though we started this process in June. It does not take 6 months to do an audit, unless you are so unprepared for said audit that Baker Tilly cannot do their work, so they are forced to ask for things that we have to chase down, slowing down the process. The Germantown School District has their audit done in about 2 months, which is about average. It is very troubling. We do not have the results yet I am guessing it is bad news. So likely we want to pass the budget and then release it so as to mitigate blame and deflect away our real issue of poor financial management of taxpayer resources from village staff and a lack of information shared with the village board to allow good decision making. Also, our budget process is much too short. We need to start working on it on March 1st or earlier. As an example, the school district has 10-month budget cycle, and their budgets are much less complex than ours. They need that time to hash things out in committee and do pro forma adjustments. We have incomplete, non-transparent numbers and just do big assumptions and mash everything together in a large number with little to no detail. This has likely gone on this way for a few years. It is difficult even for someone like me to follow the budget. And I have a degree in finance and 25 years of financial experience, so I am confused like others are also. Number 3, I have heard the administrator trumpet the use of assigning salaries of certain people to our TIDs under the guise of following generally accepted accounting principles. Truth be told, there is no such thing. Villages are allowed to assign salaries to TIDs under state statute, but there is not any Financial Accounting Standards Board regulations or structure that says this is the way it has to be done. At least nothing the 3 of my CPA connections could find. So more likely we are just choosing to move operational costs from our operational budget to the TIDs so they don't count. A recent example of how TIDs can backfire on a community is the city of West Bend. They had $1 million of salaries assigned to their TIDs when there was a changeover of finance staff. The city waited 10 years until some of the TIDs closed, and over that time they removed any costs assigned to the TIDs other than the yearly audit cost of $5,000 to $10,000 a TID. In my opinion, this was not smart financial management by any stretch of the imagination. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to. Number 4, moving of dispatch to the county. Obviously, this was a premeditated plan early in the budget process. Our chief seemed quite surprised it was happening because although it had been talked about for years, there was never a real attempt to do it. Lo and behold, we have budget issues because the revenues needed to run increasing village services are locked up in TIDs and no one can close, and not one can close until 2029 at the earliest. We have had heavy cuts to the library and recreation department, and it is hard to see where we cut anything else because the information is neither transparent nor understandable. Tyler Muniz can help us if we just continue to follow poor financial management policies like we've been doing. It is quite plausible we will see another 5 to 7% increase in the cost of village services like public safety, etc. So if that happens, are we going to cut the library and rec department more, or are we going to actually rein in spending? We cut a little in seal coating and some trees. What did we cut in outside contracted engineering? Maybe we can take another look and cut a bunch there since we are now staffed up in engineering. Number 5, borrowing around $28 million in 2024 for a police campus and other capital projects. Why would we do this? We are at the highest interest rates in 22 years, and our debt load has gone from 45 million to over 100 million in a little just over a year. This will affect our Moody's ratings and the interest rates cost we will have to pay. To be dead honest, I think we shouldn't do any large capital borrowing for at least a couple of years until interest rates come down. We do not need to borrow 20 million to rush a police building through a high interest rate environment. This would really be a dumb idea. And this comment comes from Scott Heffley. That's all I have for comments received on the budget. Is there anyone else within our audience or joining us online that would like to make a public comment for or against the proposed 2024 general fund budget? This public hearing is now closed. That takes care of all public hearings on tonight's agenda, then takes us to new business, starts with new business item A, contract for communication services related to a public safety staffing referendum. Give us more information, background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting over to our village administrator, Steve Krecklow.
Thank you. At our previous meeting, the village board directed me to reach out to several communications firms to solicit proposals to provide some communications assistance related to a public safety referendum being planned for April of 2024. I reached out to the three firms that submitted proposals to the village last year for communication services related to the intergovernmental agreement with referendum with Richfield. Two of them provided responses, McMahon and Associates and Miller Communications. Representatives from both firms are here this evening to respond to questions that the village board might have. I did include their proposals in the packet as well. I can provide some distinction, some differentiation for the board. Some of the key things that I saw as being differentiators between the two proposals. Both firms are experienced in public safety, are experienced with communications. McMahon and Associates and their partners, Red Shoes. I think one of the strengths that they would bring to the table is that they do have experienced public safety professionals, people who are experienced in police services and firefighting services, who are able to answer questions, specific questions regarding the need for public safety staff that are being requested. On the other hand, Miller Communications has a significant amount of experience working on these types of referendums. There are multiple referendums, both in the past as well as others in the area that are coming up in April, where they are providing a similar service and I think do have a well-established methodology and systematic approach to providing that information that's been established in other areas. The other significant advantage that I think that Miller Communications offers is, especially given the short timeline to provide these communication services, is that they have done this here in Germantown. And I think particularly on the mailing end of things, there are some idiosyncrasies that the community provides that had to be ironed out at during the last referendum education campaign. And having done that, I think does provide Miller Communications with an advantage in that area. With that, my primary recommendation to the board is that you do give direction to enter into a contract for these services with either McMahon and Associates or Miller Communication. I think time is of the essence to bring someone on board and get that process started. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions. And as I mentioned, we also have representatives from each one of the firms here they could provide a brief overview of their proposals and then respond to questions from the village board.
Board, questions? Comments? Trustee Nyrider, where's your nameplate, Bill?
That's what I was wondering. I know I'm leaving in April, but I thought maybe I'm getting an early kickout.
That's
Are representatives here from both companies this evening?
Yes.
They are. Okay. I guess what struck me the most was the difference in cost. And I'm sure you've seen each other, so you know the difference that is there. I would just like to ask, McMahon, Red Shoes, why the difference of 39,000 over from what Miller is offering.
Yep, absolutely. And the microphone should be on.
He's lost.
Okay, great question. The difference is our proposal, the way it's laid out, is a not to exceed limit amount. We spend a lot of time and a lot of effort on a referendum. So there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of following up and monitoring of what's happening with the social media and the, who's looking at what and how we're progressing with the information and the education. So it's not automatic that we would spend that amount of money for each of those levels. Those are estimates. We'll only bill for we won't bill higher than that amount, but we'd only bill for the time that we actually spend. And realistically, I would assume that the per hour amount is pretty much the same from both companies.
Your hourly was $175 an hour?
Right.
Is that for everybody
It was
or?
an estimate, it was actually, I think the blended was 150.
Okay. And does your cost include mailing and printing?
It does not.
Right. That's another one of the differences,
right,
I believe, between the two, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how many, in the last, say, 5 years, how many public safety referendums has McMahon worked on?
One.
And that was in
Delavan, town of Delavan. Correct.
Okay. And that was a successful one?
Yes.
Okay. But that's all you've worked on is just one on public safety?
One public safety referendum,
Okay.
yes.
And have you ever done any work in Germantown?
Yes, I actually did the fire department work here. I remember all of you when I was here. Bases haven't changed, which is a good thing. So we did a lot of work with the fire department. We've done a lot of public safety work statewide, nationwide, dealing with police, fire, EMS, and staffing. So that's something that's our strong suit. We partner with Red Shoes, which is a marketing communications company that McMahon works directly with on a regular basis. So all the things that are done during a referendum are things that they do daily with all of their clients, and not just for referendums.
I guess when you're, when you're looking at your cost, so you're saying it wouldn't exceed $85,000.
Correct.
But it's difficult for us to vote on because is it going to be 60,000? Is it going to be 70,000? Is it going to be 85,000? Granted, I'm sure it's going to be more than the 46.8 that Mueller comes in with.
Yeah, I don't know for sure that it would be over that,
All right.
but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But for us and from our viewpoint, when we look at a referendum like this, a lot of the decisions as to how much time and effort is going to be put into different areas depend on having those first meetings and those first conversations and figuring out exactly what we have to go after and what kind of education work we have to do. So it's really hard. It's hard for Red Shoes to come up with a number that covers their costs, but yet is, they don't want to have it so low that they're going to lose money on working it. And they can't, until you get into the project, it's very difficult to determine how much time it's actually going to take.
Well, I think both chiefs here, both fire and police, have done a good job over the last 6 months, especially of laying out, as well as the administrator and staff, of laying out cost of what it would cost to add additional people. So from that standpoint, I don't know how much work is going to come there. I see this as more of how are you going to publicize it, get the word out to everybody,
Right.
and get the details out to everybody. I personally don't have a problem with the job that Mueller did in the referendum. In fact, at times I was going the other way, thinking that it was sliding more the other way, and it wasn't. But I thought they did a fair job on probably what was a very, very difficult issue to bring out to the public. I still say there's a majority of public in Germantown here that still don't understand it, but that's because they maybe didn't take the time to read what went out or attend the sessions that were there. So, and as far as starting, when would someone be able to start? Say you were awarded the contract tonight.
We'll be able to start right away. And time is of the essence. It's a short time. We have
Absolutely.
to be ready for the April election.
Okay. My problem with you right now is you can't pinpoint a dollar amount. And I can't vote for something that gives me a range and hope that it's going to fall in there. I think I owe taxpayers a little bit more than that. So that's where I'm standing right now.
And I understand that, and it won't be over that amount, but
Correct.
I can't tell you how much lower.
Thank you.
Trustee Chan Miller.
Good evening. I'm curious about the referendum that you did for Delavan. How many EMS firefighters or police, what did that entail? You said you were successful. That's great. So. And what
That was an interesting referendum because they had a referendum 2 years prior
Okay,
to build a new fire station.
okay,
Then they came back within a year and started talking about a second referendum for staffing. They needed staff, and we also helped them. We were their consultant dealing with their fire issues and their staffing issues. So we helped them prepare for the referendum and go through the referendum for staffing EMS. They did not have any staffing in the station for EMS at the time.
okay.
So they fully staffed that based on the referendum that went through.
So how many people did they?
It was, I believe, 10 people.
10, okay. And it was only firefighters and they were all qualified EMS?
EMS.
Yep.
It was actually an EMS contract
Mhm.
with another private firm to staff the EMS.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Other questions, comments? Trustee Hudson.
Does administration have any preference?
I think that both firms are qualified and able to do this. Both have done work for the village in the past and are easy to work with. I did not include a recommendation in my report because I would feel comfortable working with either one.
So the answer to the question is no.
Correct.
Thank you.
Kaminsky.
No questions, really. After reviewing everything here, I personally prefer Mueller again. Not just on price, but on success stories from their past. I know we had that snafu between the village administrator and that news release going out. I honestly think that was just a mistake. And personally, I don't think it really was influential on the vote. Everybody knew where I stood on the referendum. I was against it. And it was a very close vote, and I accept the results of that. And I just wanted to be the best possible project, which is how we should all be thinking. I do not think that was a Mueller problem. I think they're a very good agency and an honest agency. This is my background in marketing. And I really like their success stories on these types of referendums. I'm not putting you on the line here, but I mean, they don't lose. They put a lot of work into it. And this referendum is so important to us that I think we need that sort of winning background on our side to give us the best possible chance of pushing this referendum through in April. So I'm 100% on board with Mueller. And then when you look at the price being less and the familiarity with how we work, how we did the committee structure, how they worked with the public hearings and the public sessions we had, we already have all that in place. And we're going to need that again. And they know us. And for all those reasons, I mean, that's who's going to get my vote.
Would it be your recommendation, Trustee Kaminsky, to run with a subcommittee of 3 trustees like we did before and would pass all the information and notices that would go out publicly before that committee of 3 for their approval or change?
It sounds good, but I haven't really thought about anything that far because I think it's something we all have to be on board on, hopefully, if we recognize how important this is. But I think that would probably be a good idea.
That's how it was when we had the last referendum for the extension of water into Richfield. There was, you were on part of that committee, so was trustee Rick Miller, and then myself, and then we had representatives from Mueller and Mr. Krecklo as overseeing. We chose Rick Miller because he was adamantly in favor, and you because you were adamantly against. And I tried to stay as neutral as I possibly could. And let you guys decide what you wanted the language to be in regards to the public comments that were made. So I thought it worked well, but it's up to this body to decide how they want to set it up next time.
I thought it worked smoothly too, and obviously it's going to be something that our chair of the Public Safety Committee is going to have to be very involved in.
Yeah, I like that.
However we set that up, I really don't care. I'm just saying, I think Mueller would be a good agency.
Where else would it go? Further questions, trustee Ball?
I'm ready to make a motion. I'll make a motion that we hire Mueller Communications for a public education campaign in the amount of $46,845.25 as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? Trustee Jan Miller.
Can we get a little summary from Miller? We haven't even heard anything from them. I know it's in the packet. They're here in person.
Do you have specific questions you'd like to ask him, or are you just
Yes.
looking? Okay. Is the representation from Miller could come to the podium? We'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Me too. Would you like kind of an overview of what we're proposing, or what can is there a specific question you'd like me to answer?
Specifically, I'd like to understand how many referendums you did on safety, public safety.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number of communities that we've worked with off the top of my head. There have been a number over the last 5 years or so. They've ranged from City of Fond du Lac, Village of Pleasant Prairie, Fort Atkinson. We're engaged with a number of communities currently to help them identify whether or not it makes sense to move forward with a referendum in the next year. So those include some area communities in Ozaukee County. Eau Claire, City of Eau Claire. There's a number of examples in the proposal that we sent over.
And are any of the past referendums that you've been engaged with for public safety been successful?
Yes, many of them.
What comes to mind?
City of Fort Atkinson, City of Fond du Lac, Village of Pleasant Prairie, I believe Eau Claire as well. Again, those are kind of the ones off the top of my head. I know that we have engaged with communities in the Western Lakes area. A number of those were successful in terms of educating the community and helping them make an informed decision. Several of them passed, several of them did not pass. It was really kind of our measure of success is how informed and educated is a voter when they go to make that decision. Again, we don't want to make a preconceived notion about whether it's the right decision for an individual or their family, which way they vote. And as a community, we just educate folks on sort of the impact either way.
So what was the largest amount of personnel on a referendum that you've been engaged with? So in other words, we have 4 police, 10 EMS.
Yeah,
So that's 14.
Yeah, I think that's as I'm thinking about kind of our past experience, it's not the largest number. I know the Western Lakes Fire District had a couple dozen folks that they were looking at bringing on board. I'm happy to get back to you with the exact numbers. I would say that from my understanding and conversations with Steve and with the chiefs, I believe we're looking at maybe 10 firefighter, paramedics or EMTs and 4 additional police officers. I would say that's pretty normal as we look at sort of the challenges that particularly fire departments across the state are facing, and as they seek to identify the right path forward in the immediate future, even knowing that things may change farther down the road.
So what about the timeline? Would you be able to be engaged
in
this timeline?
we feel very confident about the timeline.
Do you have any other comments that you'd like to make that you think makes you highly qualified for this?
Sure, absolutely. As Steve mentioned, kind of in giving an overview, Miller Communications, we are commonly engaged by municipalities, school districts, and other organizations as they seek to educate their communities on specific issues, particularly issues that may be pretty complex or difficult to understand. The way that we approach all of these situations is by first understanding from the organization that we're working with what the situation is, asking some tough questions and getting to the sort of the heart of the issue. Really, we try and ask the questions that we think a member of the community would seek to ask and understand in order to be sure that we can identify all of the information and the messages that they need to hear, again, in order to make an informed decision. We then try and take those messages and distribute them in any place that a member of the community might be seeking out information. So whether that be in the newspaper, on social media, on the village's website or social channels, kind of all across the board. And then the other layer really is making sure that those messages are in the hands of all of you as ambassadors, as members of your community who folks look to for information, so that all of you can answer questions that may come up. In addition to you all as elected officials, making sure that those messages and those answers to those tough questions are in the hands of fire department, police department, folks like that who may be interacting and interfacing with members of the community on a regular basis. As we did with the past public information campaign, would seek to bring folks in for information sessions where they're able to ask questions, learn more, and feel really confident as they head to the polls.
This is a very important referendum, and we can't, as I look at it, we can't lose. And it sounds like you've had opportunities and you win some, you lose some, right? So I'd like to get a list of that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Other questions? Thank you. Additional discussion? Trustee Nyrider.
Just one question for Steve, and I apologize, Steve, I forgot to bring my OneNote along, but this is going to be paid out of.
Excuse me. Yes, the finance director has been working with the police chief and the fire chief on identifying funds in their budget that could be utilized with this. I think initially what we've talked about is utilizing some training funds that the fire department has not used yet this year. And there may be some funds within the police department where they receive grants to pay for some expenses that had been previously budgeted. We could redirect those funds to fund the communications contract.
Will all this have to be paid in 23, or will some of that be charged into 24 then, right?
Likely we can spread some of this into 24, and I think because of that, we can absorb this into existing budgets.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
Administrator Correctlow, could we not take some funds out of the ARPA funds? Not all of the ARPA funds have been designated. This is a one-time event.
That would be another option for the village board as well.
Thank you.
Further discussion? The only other thing that I would add is that we have had public comment brought forward in the past that it would not be necessary to hire a communications firm to help with this referendum. We should be able to do it internally. Are there any thoughts on that idea? Trustee Kaminsky.
I don't know where that came from, but this would be an impossibility to do this on our own if you wanted to succeed. We know what Mueller did for us last year, and the scope of that service, the meetings that Rick and I were in, it was an amazingly huge quantity of quality work that had to be produced in very quick order. We don't have staff specializing in this. And if we really are serious about this referendum, we have to hire experts. I can't even imagine thinking of it any other way.
Further discussion? Other question that, or concern that I have or comment, I think it's more of a comment. I think it's important to draft the referendum question in a proper way that makes it easily understood for residents that come to the voting polls and to consider. I think we should look at it more as informational to the residents and not a win-lose. I mean, it's not, of course, we want what's best for the residents, but it's really their choice. That's the purpose of the referendum. So any communication firm that we're bringing forward is to help dispense that information in a fair way to give both sides so that the residents are educated and can make the choice that makes most sense for them. I mean, I've heard we got to win this a couple of times, and I don't look at it as a side. I can understand why it would be important to gain those employees, but it really is, at this time, we're putting it to the residents and it's for them to decide, and we're looking for the best firm that can present that information so they can make an educated vote for that process. Further discussion? Trustee Baum.
At the last meeting, I believe you were not in attendance, President Walter, but Attorney Sajak, can you reiterate the discussion on this language that we talked about? We can't change this question too much.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the form of the question is kind of dictated by statute. That's just the question itself. There are other components to that that play a role. For example, the explanation statement that goes, that's posted, for example, in the polling location. The specifics that we discussed at the last meeting were, trying to, like we talked about, we're going to hire police officers and then fire department personnel. We wanted to clarify that a little bit more so that the voters understood exactly what they were getting out of it. But unfortunately, some of the hacked up language is just what the statute tells us it has to say, and that's a fight that I've fought with Department of Revenue, who's the one who oversees these, and I've lost that fight, and don't anticipate that I would win this time. So.
Thank you.
Trustee Jan Miller.
I think we need to be keenly aware, the village staff needs to be keenly aware of the press releases and the timing and the approval of the village board and language and things like that. There were some hiccups for the referendum and the language, and it was posted on the website for a very long time with incorrect language, and we were told it couldn't be taken down. I think with the addition of new staff members, perhaps we can make it a much better process, more accurate, and press releases on time and not divulged before the time that is committed to. Thank you.
Trustee Baum, my reference was not into the question. The question has to deal with what you're going to be doing to the levy, what the levy increase is. My comments were more meant to the information of what a yes vote means and the information of what a no vote means. And that's what helps with the communication firms. That's the information that they present to the residents.
Yes, for the presentation part of it, I just wanted to make sure everybody understands there's not much we can change in the question that goes on the ballot.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion. Trustee Jan Miller.
And in the information, I think it's, we need to make residents keenly aware of what the impact is, not the total, but what is their individual contribution to getting the public safety up to the level that should be. So in other words, a $325,000 home equals X amount on your tax bill.
Okay.
I don't know if that can be put in the referendum or not in the language.
No, it'd be more of a communication.
But it needs to be out in the communication.
I agree.
Thank you.
Further discussion. No further discussion? Roll call vote, please. Yes, stubborn one.
It's good.
There you go.
All right, trustee Nyrider,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Nay.
trustee Hudson,
Aye.
trustee Peeper. Aye. Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Terry Kaminsky, President Walter.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item under new business is item B, Bryan Building Corporation, agent for Brian and Kevin Kazmierzak and Mark and Joanne Steffen, property owners of approximately 52.72 acres north of Holy Hill Road, east of Highway 41, south of Rockfield Road. Applications to rezone 52.72 acres from the A1 Agricultural Zoning District to the M1 Limited Industrial Zoning District and to amend the 2050 Future Land Use Plan. Give us more information and background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The two applications before you this evening are prerequisites for the proposed development of a 230,000 square foot corporate office light manufacturing facility for Green Bay Packaging, a consolidation of their existing facilities here in Germantown onto one site and a new facility at our Holy Hill Road interchange and gateway. The two proposals include a 2050 land use plan amendment and a rezoning. The 2050 land use plan amendment addresses essentially figure 6 in our plan, a vision plan for future land use in the Holy Hill Gateway area and the Freistadt district. That vision plan is shown on the screen, and the property in question, the 53 acres, is highlighted in blue. It's an area that's designated as red, which is a mixed-use commercial and high-density residential area envisioned for that particular area of the plan. The proposal is to change that classification to light industrial and warehouse, essentially from red to the what's the equivalent of the tan just to the east of it, where the existing warehouse and light industrial facilities are located in the Holy Hill Gateway district. The rezoning would essentially change the zoning on 3 properties totaling just under 53 acres from A1 agricultural to M1 limited industrial. At their meeting on November 13th, the Plan Commission held a public hearing. There were 5 people who spoke in favor of the applications and the proposal. 1 spoke against. After considering the public hearing comments, listening to staff's presentation, and a presentation made by Green Bay Packaging, the Plan Commission recommends approval of both the land use plan amendment and the rezoning for the proposed Green Bay Packaging facility. This evening, we have representatives from Bryan Building Corporation here to comment or provide some additional presentation materials to you, similar to what was presented at the Plan Commission meeting. Joe, do you want to come forward and do that?
I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I'm Joe Jersenis. I'm with Bryan Building Corporation. I'm here today representing Green Bay Packaging on the proposed development that Jeff's outlined for us here a little bit. I kind of want to just walk through high level what their plan is on the property and what next steps would look like. Jeff mentioned the current approval status. It was unanimously approved on the 13th. And we have a meeting with staff tomorrow to start talking about some of the other architectural and site improvements, which will be following after approval tonight, hopefully, of the rezoning comprehensive plan amendment. Reasoning for Green Bay Packaging's new facility is they're currently locating out of 4 plants on Carnegie Drive. In the inefficiencies of it are just not allowing them in order to, the inefficiencies are limiting their ability to grow on the site right now. So what we're looking to develop is on a 52-acre site on the corner, the intersection of Holy Hill and Highway 41. The planned development would consist of a 230,000 square foot Phase 1 manufacturing facility, 20,000 square feet of office space, and with a phased expansion of another 112,000 square feet that would go to the east of it. Now, this development is going to keep the Green Bay jobs here in Germantown. But more importantly, we're viewing this as an opportunity to create a gateway project. That's literally going to be the first thing you see as you're coming in towards the rest of the development. So we've taken the architectural standards and increased them on this. Our overall plan is to connect a public road coming from Holy Hill all the way to Rockfield Road to the north. And then overall, this is not part of any TID district, and so there'd be significant tax increment that would be created after occupancy at completion of the building. Talked about this being a gateway project, so the architectural standards, if you guys are looking in the packet or on the screen behind us, the images on top were what were recommended for the Holy Hill and Freystadt districts of the inspirational images. And the image on the bottom is what we're proposing here for Green Bay Packaging. In our opinion, we feel we're exceeding expectations. And Green Bay is extremely proud of this. Green Bay wants to remain a staple pillar in the community, and I think they view this building as their opportunity to do so. These are some of the renderings that have been talked about. This is an aerial view looking northwest over the industrial park or over the proposed Green Bay facility. This would be on that access road connecting Holy Hill to Rockfield Road. We have the trees ghosted out there so you can actually get a good representation of what it would look like with limited landscaping. This is another aerial view looking at the facility standing on the intersection of 41 and Holy Hill. Ground level view looking at the main entrance to the facility. And then this is another aerial view coming from across the freeway. I'll go back to the site plan. Talk about some of the components of the site that we've talked about is maximizing as much screening as possible, but truly not trying to hide this building because we want to make this a staple. We want this to be seen from the freeway, and we want this something that people are going to be proud of. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Board, any questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
Good evening. Can you tell me, in your proposal, is the cost for the road that you're proposing, is that being funded by Green Bay Packaging?
That hasn't been discussed yet. So what we're looking for today is an approval for the rezone and comprehensive plan amendment. I think those discussions will happen with staff on the funding of that road and how that would be funded. So I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, we don't, we have a very tight budget. We don't have a lot of money. I don't understand why you would want to just create a frontage road to Rockfield. What is the purpose? Is that for your trucks? Do you have to go back out on Rockfield?
No, majority of the truck traffic, actually all the truck traffic would be coming out of the facility on the frontage road to Holy Hill and accessing the freeway from there.
Okay. Did you ever consider just creating a private park, you know, like a loop around your building?
I think that's a question to be discussed more at a staff level. I think it involves more the master development of the entire Gateway District.
If I can respond, the road shown on the west side of the building on this particular graphic and proposed to be constructed concurrent with development of the site is just part of a longer frontage road concept that was developed as part of the 2050 plan. North of Holy Hill Road, there's intended to be a frontage road that goes north to Rockfield Road and ultimately to Bonnewell and connect with the other frontage road parallel to the east side of 45. That is the long-range vision for future circulation and access just east of US 41. And this would be the first phase of that from Holy Hill to Rockfield. The southern leg, if you will, would be south from Holy Hill down to Freistadt Road.
Long-term vision, you even said in your report, Jeff, that staff would prefer to wait until more thorough assessment of the environmental and other constraints are assessed in both the Freistadt and the Holy Hill Gateway districts has been completed. The results of the residential marketing analysis are known, and a definitive decision on the railroad crossing frontage road issue, which you alluded to in the Plan Commission meeting, that railroad isn't going very well. There are multiple compelling arguments that have been made that support a decision to the revision of the plan for this area now and allow Green Bay Packaging the light industrial development. I don't know if you would call this a light industrial development to move forward before all the Holy Hill and Gateway Freistadt District master plans have been completed. So my concern is that once again, we're changing the plan that we put forward, and we were promised in September of 2022 about that time that we would have neighborhood meetings for Freistadt, Holy Hill Road areas, get some input, have some of these surveys done, particularly the Tracy Cross. And I just want to remind you that, Jeff, you were at the first Plan Commission meeting, and they actually voted no to making a decision on the Green Bay Packaging building because they wanted to have some of these plans done in advance. They felt it wasn't the right time. And here we are a couple months later, now we're taking a look at it again.
If I could respond.
Sure.
Honestly, I think that was a bit of a mischaracterization of the first consultation that was had with Green Bay Packaging and the Plan Commission. That particular item wasn't an item to be voted on. It was simply direction to be given concerning the potential submission of applications that they subsequently have done. At that time, it was discussed that the thought was we'd wait until the master plan was done for both the Holy Hill Gateway and the Freistadt District. Since that time, as you read through my staff report, some additional information has come to light and has caused a delay in preparing those particular master plans. The railroad crossing issue is a big one. And it's not going to be as easy as we might have thought in terms of it being an improvement to an existing crossing. We're being told it's going to be viewed as a new crossing, which has apparently a higher threshold for approval from DOT and the Office of the Commissioner of Railroads.
Sure.
And at the same time, we have had additional information that came out of the investigation into the environmental situation in the Freistadt District. And as you know, that revealed a significant amount of wetland area located sporadically throughout the Freistadt District that in some ways has rendered the Freistadt District less suitable for the industrial type development that we contemplated in the vision plan in that Freistadt District because of the lack of being able to put together large tracts of flat and environmentally sensitive land area. And so the thought is, at this point, without the details of the Tracy Cross and the railroad crossing, that it's not too far-fetched, if I could use that word, to consider swapping out the high-density residential from the Holy Hill Gateway interchange and relocating that down into the Freistadt district, if that's what the Tracy Cross study reveals as a demand for future residential development. As indicated in the Holy Hill Gateway future land use plan as it stands, in light industrial development in the Holy Hill Gateway is a desirable use. The vision plan simply identified it as this as a potential location for something else. That doesn't mean that this could not be put in this particular place. And as I point out in the staff report, and is fairly obvious by tonight, and Green Bay Packaging has decided that they feel this is a suitable site for their type of new corporate location for the Village of Germantown operations. So with that, staff and now the Plan Commission are recommending in an official way that the land use plan amendment and the rezoning be approved as prerequisites for this development going forward. I'm done.
You are?
Yeah.
You sure? So I think it's a good building and so forth. I'm not crazy about the frontage road, and I am very concerned about not having that Tracy Cross survey. We've been waiting for it for 2 months now, at least.
Yeah, and we've been told, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to answer that, we've been told that it will be available the week after Thanksgiving. So
Well, here we are. Here we are. It's 1 week away. So I would prefer to get the input from one survey and see if this is going to be a good solution for this area. That's what I would like to do. So I'd like to make a motion to postpone this until the next meeting.
Until what next meeting? Village board meeting or?
Could it be brought before the Plan Commission with the, is that first?
Plan Commission has already looked at the site plan and has approved with a positive recommendation, the change
Okay,
in zoning
then-
and also the change in the 2050 land use plan. So there would really be no need for it to go back to the Plan Commission.
The site plan will eventually, yes.
Well, eventually I think it's refined, yes.
Oh.
But this particular item for rezoning and for.
I'm sorry, you are correct.
Not need to go back to Plan.
Rezoning doesn't have to go back. But the,
No, the Plan Commission has already made their recommendation.
right, I
Positive.
understood.
For the rezoning and the change in the 2050 plan.
Right.
So your motion would be to postpone it until the next village board meeting?
Correct. December 4th? Is it?
Yeah, I believe so. December 4th is the next village board meeting?
Yes.
Yep.
Or it could be put on the agenda for the 27th, but the official next village board meeting would be December 4th.
Right.
That is your motion?
It is my motion.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion made to postpone this new business item B until the next village board meeting. Is there a second on that motion? Motion fails for lack of a second. Any further questions, Trustee Chandmiller?
No.
All right. Trustee Pieper.
Yeah, the Tracy Cross housing study has to do with residential housing, not industrial, so it would have no impact whatsoever on this building.
Trustee Baum.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning as presented and approve the land use plan amendment as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Hudson.
How many people currently work in Germantown for Green Bay Packaging, please?
Between 80 and 90.
And would this add to that workforce?
It will, in long-term, add to that workforce.
And what's the average wage, please? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Yeah. $25 per one. Yeah. This is a beautiful building. This is exactly the kind of thing that this village needs. Thank you.
Further discussion on a motion to approve? Trustee Chan Miller.
I like the plan. I don't like the road. And so if you can do anything to make a private road, that would be greatly appreciated.
Further discussion? I think it's important to note, as was stated in not only Jeff's report, but also in the Bryan Building Representative's report, that this is outside of the TIF district, and once it is occupied, this goes straight to the tax districts. Further discussion? No further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Nyrider?
Aye.
Mike's not on.
Yeah, she's working on it. There you go.
Mine is a little finicky. There it goes. Trustee Nyrider?
Aye.
Trustee David Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Phil Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Jillian Pieper?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Terry Kaminsky?
Aye.
Village President Walter?
Aye.
Mr.
Motion
President?
passes. Thank you for coming.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I will be stepping down for the next item.
All right, thank you. Next item is new business item C, Vertus Development LLC, agent for District 1 LLC, property owner of West 140 North 10363 Fond du Lac Avenue, and the Robert and Mary Elizabeth Hacker Trust, property owners of a .66 acre lot on Fond du Lac Avenue, tax key GTNV 351984, certified survey map application to combine parcels. Give us more information, background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting once again over to Director Retzloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back in September, the village board approved rezoning and a plan district amendment to add 2 parcels to the Kuberg District PDD for purposes of developing a 33-stall parking lot to serve the retail coffee shop that's existing and a proposed restaurant from the existing bar that's there today, and as well as a 4-unit townhouse development in Stormwater Basin. This plan shows in yellow the original Kuberg District PDD boundary area. The red highlights the 2 parcels that were added as a result of the board's actions back in September. And as part of that approval, the Plan Development District Conditions and Restrictions Resolution requires that a CSM be used to combine the original PDD parcel, the yellow, and the north part of the area highlighted in red that's intended for the parking lot into 1 parcel. So the parking and the restaurants are on the same parcel. That proposal, or that CSM, has been submitted and is before you tonight for final action. Back on November 13th, the Plan Commission did recommend approval of the CSM subject to 2 conditions. 1, some technical corrections being needed to be made prior to recording, and simply adding an additional property owner on the CSM. Their recommendation again is to approve the CSM subject to 2 conditions.
Board?
Motion to approve the 2 lots certified survey map as presented.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the certified survey map? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item D, the Architects Partnership TAP agent for County Line LLC, property owner of the Fleet Farm property at North 96 West 18200 County Line Road, 2 lot certified survey map application. Once again, more information will be presented on new business item D from Director Retzloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Fleet Farm property owner and Chase Bank are working on a proposal to combine and redivide the existing Fleet Farm property into 2 parcels. A 14.3 acre parcel that will contain the existing Fleet Farm retail operation, and the second parcel, a 0.8 acre parcel located right at the intersection for a future Chase Bank financial institution. This close-up shows the parcel size, the existing use, essentially it's just parking area. And this graphic shows essentially where that site is located adjacent to the Cornerstone Center Retail Center and out in front of Fleet Farm, again, right at the intersection. The Plan Commission did conditionally approve the site development plan for the bank, subject to some conditions dealing with architecture and materials for the 3,000 square foot building, but also recommended approval of the certified survey map to divide the property into 2 parcels, subject to 2 conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board? Trustee Hudson?
That intersection that's a tough one. The intersection is tough, not entrance and exit into what would be Chase Bank, not going to move from what is already there.
Correct. The entrance into the bank parcel would be internally through the existing Fleet Farm parking lot. The driveways to the adjacent road system, the 2 on County Line and the 1 on Appleton Avenue would remain unchanged.
And no additionals.
And it, okay, that's good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Trustee Nyrider?
A couple of questions for you. Does the fence, if I remember right, at the Planning Commission meeting, there was some discussion regarding the fence coming down that's around the existing, not Fleet Farm building, but the other shops and whatever that are in there. Is that still in the works, Jeff?
Yes, the Cornerstone Center owner, Scott Benz, and Fleet Farm have reached an agreement to remove the section of fence that would be located on the common border between the new Chase Bank parcel and the Cornerstone Center. Another existing part of the fence on the back side of the Cornerstone Center at this point is going to remain as is. However, Scott had indicated to me that he's working with Fleet Farm on a possible alternative where they would remove the existing 6-foot chain link fence and replace it with something more decorative, but yet still be functional in terms of keeping traffic off of the backyard, if you will, of the Cornerstone Center.
Okay. I have to be honest with you, I'm having trouble with this whole thing with location. If I'm driving on Highway Q and I'm going eastbound, my only way to turn into Fleet Farm is to go to the second entrance, correct? Which is the stop and go light?
Right, the controlled intersection, yes.
Okay. And yeah, and I know over here. But the other thing is, if you take that fence down, is that going to make people think that they can drive? Again, go back to the one with the building on it. Yeah. If you take the fence down there, aren't people going to think that they can drive through the lot, say they're going for a haircut and instead they're going to go to the bank, that they can just make a sharp right and go into that?
No, actually.
Block that off with landscaping?
Yeah, I understand what your concern is, and we talk about that at the Plan Commission. What's being installed as part of the Chase Bank development are a number of curb and gutter areas, raised median, if you will, with some landscaped areas. One of which is right along that common property line that will effectively close off those parking stalls that look as if it's a continuation of the driveway. So it'll be much clearer that you cannot get from one to the other, different than what's sort of presented here once the fence comes down.
How many parking spaces would this development normally need?
Approximately 25 stalls for the size.
And they're able to get those around the building, or do they have to go out into the Fleet Farm lot?
No, all of the stalls that they need are to be contained on the site,
okay,
as shown here.
I mean, I know the corner gives some great visibility. I mean, let's face it, that's a pretty good corner, but.
Yeah, that's where the food trucks go.
Exactly, and that's sweet corn too. Don't forget that. So I guess when I look at, when I just looked at that, and I sat in the lot at Fleet Farm this afternoon for a little while, it wasn't that crowded in there. And granted, I'm sure they'll be fine without those parking spaces. But my just problem is you got all this going in, you have different uses in there. Then we should have allowed the other buildings that are there from a backward standpoint to have some entrance as well. And we didn't, or whenever that was developed.
Yeah, I think that Cornerstone development was sort of the start of the disagreement between the Fleet Farm and the Cornerstone developer that resulted in the fence going in around the whole Cornerstone Center. The fence was installed by Fleet Farm. And I think there's some agreement that's helping things out as this development moves forward between both the property owners. So hopefully that fence will come down around all of the Cornerstone Center.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
There is also proposed internal signage for direction purposes. We haven't seen what that looks like yet because they haven't proposed what their sign package is before the Plan Commission, but we will see it. And there'll be some internal directional signs that direct people depending on which entrance they're coming into. If they're wanting to get to the bank, it'll show them which direction to turn to get there.
Thank you.
Trustee Pieper.
Just to confirm, so when the funds comes down, we're going to be able to drive through the Fleet Farm parking lot into there, or no? Still not, even when the fence comes down?
No.
No, you will not be able to even when the fence comes down.
You can walk there from Crumble Cookies. There's a motion. Okay. Trustee Jan Miller.
Yes, if I remember correctly, there is not a drive-through in this bank. Is that correct?
Yes, there is.
There is?
There's a drive-through ATM on the back side. On this graphic would be on the top.
Okay.
There's also a walk-up ATM on the front side and then other internal operations.
Is there a canopy over that drive-through? Okay, thanks.
Motion to approve new business item D
For the certified survey ban. As presented.
as presented.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed, raise your hands. Two opposed, motion passes. Next item is new business item E. Appointment of Matthew Mortwell, apologize if I butchered your name, to the position of Director of Public Works. Give us more information, background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting over to our Village Administrator, Steve Krecklow.
Thank you. We have before us this evening the appointment of Matthew Mordwit as the Director of Public Works. We've gone through an extensive search process lasting a couple of months and led by Public Administration Associates. We did receive this last round of recruitment, over 20 applications. There were 6 that we consider to be well qualified that were brought in for interviews. There were 2 interview panels that were set up, including staff from other departments as well as Public Works staff to provide some feedback and some input into the selection process. The result of that is the selection of Mr. Mortwood, who's here this evening for the appointment. He comes to the Village of Germantown with over 15 years of progressively responsible management experience in public works. He has a master's in business administration and has demonstrated both effective management in terms of operations as well as capital projects. And I think his skill set will be a good complement to the DPW team and a great asset for the village.
Trustee Baum.
Make a motion that we confirm Matthew Mortwet as Director of Public Works as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Trustee Rick Miller.
I think you should come and say hi.
I think you should come
Come
and
to
say
the
hi.
podium. He sits in the back with the rest of them. He's got to walk out.
Is this on?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for considering my appointment for the Director of Public Works position. My name is Matt Mortwitt. Like Mr. Krenklo said, I've been in Public Works a long time, 15 years, through a series of different positions. I worked for the City of Milwaukee for about 12 years. And most recently, I've been at Walworth County as the Deputy Director of Public Works there. It's nice to see all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hard to working with you. Aboard.
Trustee Chan Miller.
Can we ask questions?
You can ask a question.
Great.
sure.
So where do you live right now?
I live in Brookfield.
Okay, so you're nearby.
Yes.
Shorter commute.
Much shorter. Yeah, about
Yeah.
30 miles and 25 minutes, but who's counting?
Yeah. And we have a new building for you to manage.
I've heard about that.
Yes.
I do have a pretty solid background in facilities and facilities management. So
I was reading.
yeah, I think that is something I can definitely take on.
I was particularly interested in your cost savings projects that you worked on. You saved $100,000 on one of your projects. That was just one of them, probably.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really like doing is kind of analyzing data and really understanding how things work. And then making sure that whoever I work for, and now hopefully Germantown here in a few minutes, is getting value for the work that they've contracted. And I've found that a lot of times in, areas where I've taken over responsibility, that things have just kind of always happened a certain way, and maybe that worked, but at some point maybe it doesn't. And that analysis I think is important.
Yeah. Numbers talk.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Not aboard yet. Further discussion.
Wait for the vote.
A tough crowd.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Now you're aboard.
All right.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, next item is item F, Kinderberg Playground Equipment. Give us more information on this new business item. Is Gil with us tonight?
It's been taken off.
Been taken off? Okay.
The piece of equipment was sold, so the item is moved.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Next item then. Item G, resolution approving the 2024 village budget. Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve the 2024 village budget as proposed. Trustee Nyrider.
I know that budgets are extremely difficult because of the economic times that we're in, certainly. And first of all, I guess I feel that the staff here did an excellent job getting a budget and preparing it and presenting it to us. They were not upset with us when we made some changes, but you have to have a document to start with. And I feel that Steve and Matthew and the staff here did a good job of getting us that document. I also compliment everybody on the amount of time that was spent on educating the public about the budget. And I know that there were some sessions that no one even attended, which is kind of sad, but at least we could say it was presented to you. And it's been out on the website. Papers have been very good about carrying it and whatever. My problem with the budget still goes back to the library and the rec department. And I feel very strongly that I don't know if we can, could restore all of the money that was cut, but at least portions of it. I tried the last couple of days to look through the budget, and other than trying to take $5 from here and $5 from there, it's pretty difficult to come up with that kind of money because again, it is a very, very tight budget. But probably that's an issue. The people with the library especially, that's probably the most calls and emails that I've had on any issue since I came to office a couple of years ago. So it shows me that there's a concern here. And I think part of that concern is that both the library and the rec department are well run. And they do a good job of really getting the community involved. And are we going to hurt the library? Are we going to hurt the rec departments by making these cuts? I feel we are. Everybody can tighten their strings a little bit, and I'm sure that both areas there could find some dollars to put out. But I just personally feel that with the amount of money that we're spending, that we really need to look at that issue, and did we look at it hard enough and work to try and restore some monies to both of those areas. Otherwise, I support the budget otherwise, and certainly the other issue of moving the dispatch to Washington County. Have been from the start very supportive of that. I think that the people that came down from the county, I believe Sheriff Schulteis was here and was Captain Stacer, should have put us a little bit more at ease that this is going to take maybe a little bit of an adjustment, but I think they're ready for it. And if they want to have shared experiences between municipalities and the county, they better be ready for it. So that's an issue that I don't have any problem with. Yes, I know it affects people's lives here that work here, but I think the county will also make an issue to see how many of them they can possibly hire. And I think it relieves us too from a standpoint of, there's been difficulty in hiring people for that to work here as well. That takes us out of the equation. So that's part of the budget I certainly support, along with most of the rest of it. But that's my two. Personally, I'm always for a budget that doesn't raise your tax dollars at all. That's just the way I was born. That's the way I've worked in other communities and whatever. I've tried to see what the school district, Germantown School District, did, and I could not find those numbers today as to what they're doing to their budget. I believe the county is going down, everybody's share. So we're going to go up a little bit. And again, I can't compliment or criticize the school district because I couldn't see what they were going to do as well. So that's my issue. I know that if you want to restore something, you've got to find it. I could not find $100,000 like even for the library to adjust without going and nickel and diming. Thank you.
Further discussion, Trustee Kaminsky.
I too think that this budget had a lot of very solid input, and our department heads came to us, as I said before, with a budget that is tight, zero-based. It's what they need from the ground up. They don't just say, hey, I had this last year, I want it again this year. That's not how we budget in Germantown. And all the time I've been here, I think the last 2 or 3 years have been exceptional how the department heads have worked to try to get their budgets as tight as possible. And this year in particular, the first year we've actually had to face cuts in a long, long time. And again, partly due to inflation, which has increased the cost of absolutely everything. And we have to make that up somehow. the salary increases, which were necessary to stay competitive. These were two huge factors. And then trying to add some substance to our police and fire departments. It's one of those years when we're not all going to get what we want. I hate seeing the library cut as well. I'm a patron of the library. However, we all looked over the course of 2.5 months, even to find $50,000, if you recall. At the last meeting, I gleaned that budget and tried to get some ARPA funds, which we couldn't use. There is not $50,000 to take away from anywhere else in this budget. There isn't, and we all know it. We've all looked. We would have come up with ideas. And now the point being, we have to pass a budget tonight. This is 1 year when we have to tighten our belts a little bit. It's not like the library is going to close. It's not like the after-school programs in recreation are going to disappear. None of that's happening. We have to tighten our belts. What do most consumers want? What do our constituents want? They want to be sure that the police will call when you dial 911. Look at the incident we had at the middle school. What, 2-3 weeks ago? And people say we don't need to build up our police force more. This is the new reality of where we live, even in Germantown. We do have to think about public safety first, and it should be the biggest portion of our budget. Second, the other complaints we're going to get if we cut salt and don't put as much salt in the salt domes, we decide we want to like maybe not buy another plow truck, well, then we know what the phone's going to ring for there. The streets and highways are extremely important to our residents, as is public safety. I agree the library and recreation is wonderful and very necessary to round out our lifestyle. But for 1 year, the way it has to be approached is to take these cuts, and every department did it. We're not singling anybody out. I don't like it, but I think we have to live with it for a year and pass a budget tonight.
Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller, excuse me.
I know there was a lot of work done on this budget. And we have a new Tyler Munis application, ERP system that is assisting us, and it's new. So we've gone through the transition. We spent a lot of money on it. However, I want to echo what Trustee Nyrider is saying, that the problem with cutting services to our community, to our residents on the library and park and rec is we're taking $100,000 approximately from each of those budgets. And the park and rec is over just about $1 million. And the library, the contribution from the village is only $650,000. So saying that every single department had a 10% cut, even Administrator Krecklow said, no, that's not what happened. So I think we're not serving our public if we're not giving them the same amount of recreation, accessibility to library. So when you say we're not closing the doors to the library, in effect, we're shutting the library for an hour extra every day. It's not going to be open for 8 hours or whatever it is. Let's just say it's 7 hours a day. So if you're a mom and you want to drop your kids off, or you want to go to a program that starts at 9, you can't do it because it's not going to be open. It affects the personnel that we hire and that are on staff right now. They're going to have to let people go. And I don't think that's a good look when we're hiring a lot of other people and giving raises. I don't think it's a good look. What I would recommend is where we have spent a lot of money, and I think Bruce from PAA and made the assessment that we have been using outside engineers for a very long time. And over the course of 3 years, he stated, don't quote me, approximately $6 million was spent on outside engineering. Now we have an engineer, a village engineer. Now we have a director of DPW. Now we need about $200,000 savings so we can keep the library and the park and rec whole in their budget and give them the same budget they had last year. So we need to dig a little bit deeper, but we need the assistance from some experts. Why can't we go back? Why can't we take a look? If we have people on staff that are qualified, then why aren't we giving them projects where we can save money? So if you're spending, Dean, if you're spending $2 million a year on outside engineers, can't you bring in 5% of that, 10% of that?
I think that we will be bringing some of that back in, and
Well, then it's coming in on our budget for 2024.
some of it is because of the projects that are still out there. We had gained one engineer, but the Director of Public Works is not going to be supplementing the engineering work that's still out there. And on that, I don't quite understand your frame of logic in regards to because we spend $6 million and we have an engineer and a public works director that we should somehow have $200,000 in savings. That the budget doesn't reflect that. So it's possible, but I don't think currently that that's a known. That's an unknown factor.
Well, we won't know until we try, right? If we have people and we're finishing projects, then we won't need some of the outside engineers. But we already have more that covers the whole, my understanding is all of the DPW. We're paying extra for them to do all of the administrative work, which includes the engineering. So all these other projects that are going on that have been contracted out, there has to be something that we can do on our own.
And what is that in your opinion?
Well,
What's that amount?
$200,000.
How? And how do you come to that conclusion?
You don't need to.
You're guessing.
I know. But if you don't try, if you have more talent than you did before, and you had the biggest budget is engineering, and it should be reduced. That's what Bruce said from PAA. And unless I misunderstood him, there has to be some sort of
Wait. Are you?
There has to be some equation that we can use or some project that we can use to reduce the amount of engineering.
Administrator Kreckler.
Just want to explain a little bit about those numbers that PAA presented and then provide some numbers from this budget to address Trustee Miller's question. So when PAA looked at how much the village has spent on engineering firms over the last several years, they looked at all funding sources. So that included, for example, engineering work that was done related to tax increment districts and paid out of tax increment district funds. It included engineering work that was done out of water and sewer utility for water and sewer projects that was paid for out of those funds. It included engineering work that was done on capital projects. Like, for example, we've spent well over $1 million on engineering services related to the new DPW building capital project. And that was paid for out of bond proceeds, not out of operating funds. It included one of the things that we've outsourced is we haven't been able, as we've had vacant positions, is plan review. Review of plans that developers submit, and the developers actually pay for those costs, not the village, but it's specific to plan review. So those are all things, all examples of components of that $6 million that we could not use those funds. Even if we're able to reduce those costs, we can't use those funds to fund the library or the rec programs. Okay, because there are other enterprise funds, there are bond proceeds, there are specific revenue offsets. So we couldn't use any of those to fund the library or the rec programs. And that's the vast majority of that total dollar amount that PAA recommended. Now, what we have been spending in the engineering department budget is about $250,000 a year the past couple of years. And half of that was offset by revenues. So if you look at the line items in the engineering budget, you'll see under contracted services that we've been spending about $200,000 to $250,000. And you'll see under the revenue line that we've been bringing in about $125,000 to $150,000 in revenue to offset that. So really, on the operating budget side, what we were seeing was a cost of about $100,000 that we weren't spending on salaries in the engineering budget, but we were spending on consultants. So that kind of gives you the background about what had happened. Now, if you look at the engineering department budget for 2024, there's a line called contracted services. That's where we pay for engineering services out of that line. The budget for that for 2024 is $44,000. And the majority of that is, it goes to Rukert and Milky, who they host our GIS system and maintain our GIS system. So there is, and I don't have the specific dollar amounts. I'm sure Matthew could look it up if it's necessary, but out of that $44,000, more than half goes to Rukert and Milky for the GIS hosting, which is something that we don't have the capacity to bring that in-house even when we're fully staffed. So there's only a small dollar amount that even if we completely eliminate all outside engineering services that are paid for out of the general fund, it wouldn't come anywhere close to being able to restore unfortunately, it wouldn't be able to become close to restoring the rec programs or the library hours.
There isn't any other area in the DPW that we could garner some dollars from savings that are outsourced?
Nothing that is outsourced. The other main areas, there's the engineering budget, other than that, only contains salaries. There's a few $1,000s for office supplies. There is $4,500 for equipment. There's $5,000 for training and seminars. If you went elsewhere in DPW, you could look at buildings and grounds. That's an area that's already been cut back quite a bit. And I would hesitate to do that because there you're looking at projects like the painting of the senior center. There were some repairs to Fire Station 2. It might have been Fire Station 2, but there were some items there. We've already cut back on that a lot, and that creates more of a hole next year. We've already cut back on the tree planting and maintenance budget by another $46,000, I think it was, to help add public safety services. We cut back on what the department had asked for salt purchases for the budget that we gave you in September. We already had cut that back, trying to balance the budget. So I definitely agree with all the comments about, it's the rec programs are valuable. The library hours are valuable. And if there are other ideas, if we've missed something, I'm completely open to it. Finance director is completely open to it, but I'm just saying we've gone through this multiple times as we've been making the comments here. I went through again, just looking, is there something we missed? I know I've been driving Matthew crazy with asking questions. Well, did you get this revenue? Is this out there? And just, we've been looking under every stone to try to find it. And we haven't been able to come up with the money to restore those services.
Trustee Chan Miller, as Trustee Nyrider had said, he has looked through the budget and could not find it. And And obviously you have looked through it as well and couldn't find it. And to lay it back on the village staff's door doesn't seem right to me. If you have an idea of where it's supposed to come from, then you should make that recommendation as to where you would like the money to be cut and then reassessed to the library or the recreation department. You can't go back this way because there's no time for that anymore. We've gone through the committee of the whole. I see you, Trustee Pieper. We've gone through the committee of the whole meetings. We've gone through all of the committee meetings that had the budget proposals to them. And this is what we've come to today. It's been published, and tonight is the night that we have to approve a budget and come up with something that everybody can agree or the majority can agree on. And we'll sit here until that happens, because we can't leave without an approved budget, because then it has to go and have the tax records developed, prepared, and get ready to go out. So those that want to pay it before the end of the year so they can take it off of their income taxes can do so. So we are under a time constraint for that reason. And tonight's the night that we vote in any way. And I'm open to any ideas of what our budget is going to look like. Trustee Pieper.
So I was taking a harder look at the budget, and I think that there are a lot of inconsistencies. First off, I do not think that we should have our books audited by the same company. Again, I do think we need a new auditor. I mean, shoot, I used to go on audits with my dad. We audited a WAGO in a week. This is ridiculous that it's taking this long, and I think that the books really need to be looked closer at. For instance, in the engineering department, I see a 2023 budget and then I see a 2023 year to date. Lots of these boxes are empty, so we haven't spent anything in 2023 is what this sheet is telling me. So if we spent 0 in 2023, but we're still budgeting the same amount for 2024 or even higher, which makes no sense to me. So right here in engineering, there's $18,400 that we could save.
Line item, what topic?
Okay, engineering, line item 10-541-530-3400, postage. We spent nothing in postage, but yet we're still gonna budget $2,900 for it. Gas and oil, we spent nothing in gas and oil, but we're gonna budget $4,500. The telephone, yeah, we took $2,500 away from it, but why do we still have $2,500 budgeted? That doesn't make sense to me. Software support, we're budgeting $7,000, we spent 0, but we're gonna budget another $7,000. Travel, $1,500 budgeted, we spent 0, but we're gonna budget another $1,500? Somebody make sense to me.
I can,
Terry, if you can make sense, please, by all means, do it.
I can respond that most of the items that you've picked out are items that are paid centrally and then allocated. So like telephone charges, for example, I think that was an item of where there was an extensive discussion at one of the committee of the whole meetings, are paid centrally and those are allocated out. Gas and oil is the same thing, where those are paid for out of one account, and then later on in the year.
Can you show me the one account, what the year to date is right now? And if they're paid out annually, then why are we not breaking it out right now for budget season?
Because it's a manual process at this point in the old system.
Didn't we just pay for?
And it was just implemented in October. So those numbers are not.
So you're telling me next year it's not going to be this painful and we're going to have accurate numbers? Because by looking at these sheets, this, from accounting standpoint, I have my accounting degree. This is not right.
We are working to improve the systems as quickly as we can. It'll be better next year and it'll be better the year after that.
So you're telling me all of those accounts that I just listed, that those all are in one lump sum right now and then have to be divvied up by the end of the year to the specific departments?
The travel is not.
The postage?
Postage, I believe, is centrally paid for and is allocated out. There's a postage machine in the supply room back in the corner that all of the village hall departments
So
use.
those line items that need to be divvied out at the end of the year, that would be helpful for us to have had months ago. listed months ago. And it would, I know it's a manual process, but you could have at least given us what the bulk amount is right now and what each department is budgeting and if we're hitting it or if we're not. This to me is an inaccurate, incomplete budget, and I am frustrated beyond belief. And I wish I could come to here and I audit the books. If I'm legally allowed to, please let me. I would love to spend a week going through line to line and seeing what the heck is going on. Because something's fishy and I don't like it.
You are presented a cost analysis on a regular basis from the Department of Finance.
Okay, I know I don't want to be here all night. I know nobody wants to be here all night. But we better start making some decisions and making them quick or we're going to be sleeping here.
Further discussion. Trustee Bone.
Yep, let's make a decision. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt.
Already have it.
Okay, and I call the question.
Get to vote on. Okay, I need a second. Motion made and seconded. We have discussion on that?
No, it's called a question.
Okay. All those in favor to call the question, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed. Call the question. One opposed. Roll call vote.
Is opposed, please?
Jan Miller.
Thank you. No, what are we doing?
You're voting on the budget.
Roll call. Trustee Nyrider?
No.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
No.
Trustee Phil Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper?
No.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? President Walter?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item under new business is a resolution approving the levy of property taxes for village purposes. Village Administrator.
This is the accompanying resolution that sets the property taxes corresponding to the budget that was just approved.
Motion to approve item H.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Questions?
Yeah.
Trustee Jan Miller.
When does this have to go out? The property tax bills?
Property tax bills, the process will start tomorrow of getting the property tax bills, the calculations made and the property tax bills being sent out. It's important that this get approved on a timely basis since there are quite a few residents who like to pay before the end of the year. And there is some time that's required to assemble the information, print this, get it in envelopes, mailed out. The mail sometimes takes time. And we'll start accepting property tax payments in early December.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Do you want to wait for trustee?
No. No. She's vacated her chair.
Trustee Nyrider?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Phil Hudson? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Terry Kaminsky? President Walter?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item is item I, resolution authorizing the placement of special charges on the 2023 tax roll against certain properties.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
So these are all of the, give me an example, Steve.
Example,
They didn't pay the, well, a bill.
delinquent water or delinquent utility bill. If it passes certain thresholds, those delinquent bills are then placed on the property tax.
Special assessments.
Special assessments.
Okay, thank you.
Or delinquent taxes from the previous year. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Nyrider,
Aye.
trustee David Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Phil Hudson,
Aye.
trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Terry Kaminsky, President Dean Walter.
Aye. Next two items are for closed session, starting with item J, aqueous film forming foam products liability litigation, multi-district litigation number 218MN02873, 3M and DuPont PFAS litigation class action settlement. The village board may convene in the closed session pursuant to sections Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. And item K, Administrator 2023 Performance Goals Update. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin Statute 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph C for considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and then may reconvene in the open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. Item J would include whom?
The village attorney and myself.
Item K would be just,
And, I'm sorry, and the water utility superintendent.
and item, what about the village clerk?
Uh,
No?
Village clerk can be excused.
Okay, and then item K would include just yourself?
Correct.
All right, motion for closed session.
Motion to
please.
go into closed session for items, somebody help me out here.
A and K.
J, and for K, with the members that you mentioned present.
Okay. And we have a second from trustee Baum. Discussion on the motion to go into closed session. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum, trustee Nyrider, trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Pieper. Aye. Trustee Rick Miller, trustee Kaminsky, President Walter.
Aye. All right, before we adjourn, our next village board meeting will be on this November 27th, special meeting. It starts at which time? Starts at 7 o'clock, and then we have another regular village board meeting on the first Monday of the month for December 4th. Thank you. 7 o'clock for the special meeting. Yes. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night. Turn off your microphones, a couple minutes to clean up before we go into closed session. You got